Rashn Yast. Rashn Yast, the truest true, is the genius of truth. He is one of the three judges of the departed with Mithra and Sirozahs. It's interesting that in Islam, in the modern form, believes that a person's asked three questions when they die. He holds the balance in which the deeds of man are weighed after their death, and in each of these entities, Rashn, Mithra, and Sirozahs can be considered to regard that. God, prophet, religion question. I mean, that's oversimplified, but he makes no unjust balance, neither for the pious, nor yet the wicked, neither for lords, nor yet rulers, as much as a hair's breadth he will not vary, and he shows no favor. He is an offshoot, either of Mithra and the avenger of lies, or of Ahura Mazda himself, the all-knowing Lord. But we see elsewhere the sun language isn't literal to the point where it's clear that a person or thing can become the sun. Well, if their existence or physical or spiritual being doesn't make them a son, well, or daughter or whatever. This Yast seems to be an appeal made to Rashn to come and attend the performance of the Var Nirong, or ordeal, of which Rashn, as the genius of truth, was the natural witness and arbiter. As an entity of truth, must know everything and be present everywhere, he is called from whatever part of the world he may actually be in. Those formulas and grimoires, from whatever part of the world thou art, and all that sort of stuff. This, goes way back, but it wasn't alternative religion. It was mainstream stuff at some point. But actually, this brings about an enumeration of all the parts of the world, from the earth to the highest heaven, passing through thou bores, the star region, the moon region, and the sun region. This Yasts is recited on the days of Rashn, Merdad, Ashtad, and Zemyad, the 18th, 7th, 26th, and 28th of the month. And I don't know if my posting this is going to correspond to that, but it seems that some of this started off as, well, the idea that God was commanding this, and whatever part these light beings were, they would come, they would carry out the command, whatever. 0. May Ahura Mazda be rejoiced. Hashem Bahu. Holiness is the best of all good, and so on. I confess myself a worshipper of Mazda, a follower of Zarathustra, one who hates the Da'avas and obeys the laws of Ahura. For sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification unto Havana, the holy and master of holiness, unto Rashn Yast, unto Arstat, who makes the world grow, who makes the world increase, unto the true spoken speech that makes the world grow. Be propitiation, sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification. Yatha ahu ve'eryo, the will of the Lord is the law of holiness, and so on. Part 1 compromises verses 1 through 8. 1. The holy asked him, O holy Ahura Mazda, I ask thee, answer me with words of truth. Thou who knowest the truth, thou art undeceivable. Thou hast an undeceivable understanding. Thou art undeceivable as thou knowest everything. What of the holy word is created true? What is created progress making? what is fit to discern, what is healthful, what is wise, what is happy, and more powerful to destroy than all other creatures. 2. Ahura answered, I will declare unto thee, O pure, holy Spitma, the most glorious holy word itself. That is what in the holy word is created true, what is created progress making, what is fit to discern, what is healthful, wise, and happy, what is more powerful to destroy than all other creatures. 3. Ahura said, bind up a 3-twigged barisma against the way of the sun. Address unto me, Ahura these words, we invoke, we bless Ahura. I invoke the friendship of Ahura towards this var prepared, towards the fire and the barisma, towards the full boiling milk, towards the var of oil and the sap of the plants. So it's obviously it's making ha'ama, right? 4. Then I, Ahura shall come for help unto thee, towards the spar prepared, towards the fire and the barisma, towards the full boiling milk, towards the var of oil and the sap of the plants, along with the fiend-smiting wind, along with the cursing thought of the wise, along with the kingly glory, along with Sa'aka, made by Masta. 5. We invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong, I invoke his friendship towards the svar prepared, towards the fire and the barisma, towards the full boiling milk, towards the bar of oil and the sap of the plants. Then Rashnu the tall, the strong, will come for help unto thee, towards this var prepared, towards the fire, towards the barisma, towards the full boiling milk, towards this var of oil and the sap of the plants, and milks in parentheses. It might have even been mushroom juice. Along with the fiend-smiting wind, along with the cursing thought of the wise, along with the kingly glory, along with Sa'aka, made by Masta, beneficent Rashnu, most knowing Rashnu, most discerning Rashnu, most foreknowing Rashnu, most far seeing Rashnu, Rashnu, the best doer of justice, Rashnu, the best smiter of thieves. 8. The uninjured, the best killer, the smiter, the destroyer of thieves and bandits, in whatever part of the world thou art, watching the doings of men and making the account. Part 2, 9. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the Karshvara Arazaheh, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong, I invoke his friendship towards this var prepared, and so on, in whatever part of the world thou art. 3 is verse 10. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the Karshvara Sabahe, we invoke, we bless Rashnu, I invoke his friendship towards this var prepared, in whatever part of the world thou art. Part 4 is verse 11. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the Karshvara Fra da Dafshu, was, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong, I invoke his friendship towards the var prepared, and so on, in whatever part of the world thou art. 5. Verse 12. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the Karshvara Vidadafshu, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong, I invoke his friendship towards the spar prepared, and so on, in whatever part of the world thou art. Part 6. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the Karshvara Vauru Bareste, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong, I invoke his friendship towards the spar prepared, and so on, in whatever part of the world thou art. 7. Verse 14. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the Karshvara Va'uru Bareste. We invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards the Svar prepared, and so on, in whatever part of the world thou art. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the Karshvara, the right, Havan Iratha, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards the Svar prepared, in whatever part of the world thou art. And part 6 and 7, which is, continent 5 and 6, we're referring to different ones, right? 9 is verse 16. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the sea, Va'urukasha, we invoke, we bless, O Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards the Svar prepared, in whatever part of the world thou art. 10, verse 17. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the tree of the eagle that stands in the middle of the sea, Va'urukasha, that is called the tree of good remedies, the tree of powerful remedies, the tree of all remedies, and on which rest the seeds of all plants, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this Var prepared, and so on. 18. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art on the Adas of the Ranga, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this Var prepared, and so on. 12 is verse 19. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art on the Sanaka of the Ranga, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this Var prepared, and so on. 13 is verse 20. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art at one of the angles of this earth, we invoke, we bless Rashnu. I invoke his friendship towards this Var prepared. 14. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art at the boundary of this earth, we invoke, we bless Rashnu. I invoke his friendship towards this Var prepared. 15. Verse 22. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in any place of this earth, we invoke, we bless Rashnu. I invoke his friendship towards this Var prepared, and so on. Verse 16. 16 is 23. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art on the Hara Sirozahs, the bright mountain, around which the many stars revolve, stars is in parentheses, where come neither night nor darkness, no cold wind and no hot wind, no deathful sickness, no uncleanness made by the Yasts, and the clouds cannot reach up under the Harete Baresa. We invoke, we bless Rashnu. I invoke his friendship towards this Var prepared, so on. 17. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the highest Huka area of the deep precipices made of gold, wherefrom this river vine, Arvisura, Anahita, leaps from 1,000 times the height of a man, we invoke and bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this Svar prepared. Oh, and 25 is also in there. Okay. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art upon the Ta'era of the height Hara-ite, around which the stars and the moon and the sun revolve, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this Svar prepared, and so on. 20 compromises verse 27. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the bright and glorious star Tistaria, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this Svar prepared, and so on. 21 is verse 28. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the group of the Hapto Iringa stars, we invoke, we bless Rashnu the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this Svar prepared, and so on. 22 is verse 29. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in those stars that have the seed of the waters in them, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared. 23 is verse 30. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in those stars that have the seed of the earth in them, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared, and so on. 24 is verse 31. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in those stars that have the seed of the plants in them, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared, and so on. 25. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the stars that belong to the good spirit, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared, and so on. 26. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the moon, which has the seed of the bull in it, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared, and so on. 27. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the swift horse sun, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared, and so on. 28 is 35. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the sovereign endless light, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared, and so on. 29 is 36. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art in the bright, all-happy, blissful abode of the holy ones, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared, and so on. 37. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art as the shining Garo Damana, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared, and so on. 31 compromises 38 through 40. 38. Whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art, we bless Rashnu, the strong. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared. For this brightness and glory I will offer unto him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. Yenhe, Hatam, all those beings of whom Ahura Mazda, and so on. Yatha, and 40. Yatha Ahuva Erio, the will of the Lord is the law of holiness, and so on. I bless the sacrifice and prayer and the strength and vigor of Rashnu, Resista of Arstat, who makes the world grow, who makes the world increase, and of the true spoken speech that makes the world grow. Asham Bahu, holiness the best of all good, and so on. Give unto that man brightness and glory, give him health of body, and so on. Give him the bright, all-happy, blissful abode of the holy ones. Now, you see this breaking up into 30 parts after an introduction again, and just like when we see verse 20, 21, and 22 all start out, whether thou, O holy Rashnu, art. And the first one, at one of the angles of this earth, we bless Rashnu. I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared. And, I invoke his friendship towards this far prepared. And we is the last, and we bless Rashnu before that. And of this earth as part of all three of these, but art in any place for part 15, part 14, at the boundary, and 13 at one of the angles of the earth. And we see this sort of thing too, is that if you know the sequence, it's easier to memorize this sort of thing. Continuing the commentary on verse 122 of the Meher Yast, 30 strokes with the Strasho Karana, Upazana. It is an expiation, Akaya Yanta, which purges them from their sins and makes them fit for offering a sacrifice to Mithra. One may find in this passage the origin of the painful trials through which the adepts of the Mithric mysteries had to go before being admitted to initiation. Uk an un, ice, auton dun hasa ito tis teles the I ma dia tinon bathmon parelthon ton ka as eon dikes I ealton osion kai apatha suidas. The Sutud Yast is the last chapters of the Yasna. So from 58 to the end, according to Enquitil. And the first words of the Visperad are Vispe Batavo. And of course, from such thing, the Garo Namana is the paradise of the afterworld. And of course, those going there are going towards the abode of the immortals, the these unfallen light beings that don't really have a choice to disobey, do they? And they're fed with the ambrosia, ambrasion, idar, like Poseidon's steeds. And there's some doubts regarding 125, the wearing the yoke, the crossbeams of the yoke, the fastening with the books of Kshatha or Iria. The good kingdom. Simanka, Simo Ithramka, being a word that we're going to see. Oh, and 3 of the comments. So the intersection of some sort, crossbeams or something. The metal, Yazata, of course, we've just saw, I just made mention of. And the beautiful Upa Ere Spata. And it's rushing all around in verse 127, because when you do rituals and stuff, it can cause movement of at least your inner senses, if not things to happen in the spiritual atmosphere. Pa ere vasa. And the translations of Pa ere da view and Pa ere vara. And the genius of fire, Atar, it's not the worship of the fire, even it goes to that point. And the text referencing the heavenly space, that they go regarding. And you can also think of heavenly space as the ritual space. It's not per se inherent, it's what's done there. And of course, you're supposed to have a pious conscience. And, a qualified priest. Now, qualification shouldn't, so not pious. So yeah, piety, right belief, those are the real qualifications. Of course, you should try to have things right. And whose house is great? That's an interesting one, because that's kind of what the Pharaoh thing. Houses above, in verse 140. Asha Vanguhe is implied amongst the mention of the Sirius star, the Tis Turya. And one who watches around the countries, Ewe Da Vium, and Ada Vium. Compromises the next notes in part 35. You know, around the countries, in this country, you know, before the countries. But, you know, the last one being Pa Ere Da Vium. And one who sacrifices to Mithra, but originally it could be towards Mithra. You know, the archangel of the covenant, you could say. Of course, we see that divided in a few different ways, right? And he's been taught to the world, namely the law, you know, the law of the world at that time, at the very least, you could say. The Rezva is Pahlavi Huzvan. And so we are in the Sirozahs, Yasts, Advokat, and we are talking about the, we're past the comment here, we're talking about the tongues. You know, because the fiend drives away bit by bit one's limbs towards what's not right. And manly as the same thing as powerful. So courage is using one's ability. And there's doubt regarding this mention of the turning away of the Droog. Varethrem Daresta, something Zak Droog Varti Das Tartum. And we have the mention of the best fiend smiters in the battle. Not just a fighter. Truth is the best fiend smiter in battle. And this chapter, sometimes there's something interesting about the whole chapter thing. Pronounce that chapter. References to the word and what chapters and verses mean in sacred scriptures. Islam makes the best, in the modern age, makes the best example of that, but you see some of that going on before that. And different words are used to express the same conflict as it refers to the faithful or the idolaters. But idolaters is probably not really a right translation, although they didn't use idols like, you know, there weren't the charms and whatnot that the Christians and other people had, at least not at this period. Certain statues of even Zarathustra became produced at later time. And we have Epe Ayanam, Madame Ross, Aratyanam Dadastan, from Aratha, meaning Dina, Dadastan, Gada Neresamsa, Nere Osang. The Pahlavi has Asaka, a Scythe, you know, the Gog and Magog, right? The Scythians. And so those are the we have people offering sacrifices. Wait, no, we're not talking places. I'm sorry. We're talking the words, the sacrifices, the evil doing. But the moving... I'm 10 ahead here. So the word to be spoken is the last one. And we have the road, the law, the thief. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. But that last one, the praise being what fell down against the idolaters. Kerasaka Kra Siak. Same as Nere Oseng. That name was in the later periods applied to Christians, as if Karasa were the names of Christ. Bachman. The Christians kind of definitely understood themselves as changing the terms or other such things. And of course, the specific words of the law are to be regarded. In verse, and we have an allusion to hell, hell being the place of darkness and that sort of thing. And respect for the creation of a Ormazd, Ahura Mazda. The Yasna has, through whose strength, victorious power, wisdom, and knowledge, the Amesha Spentas go. Van Pahlavi Satun and, along with the 7 Karshvaras of the earth. And, just because the words in one scripture, one part of scripture, are a bit different doesn't mean that that the text is per se corrupted. Because certainly you're trying to have an evocative effect of one sort or another. And the law is taught to the saviors to come, according to verse 14. But the saviors to come, it's not in the Christian sense. It's in the... these are the exemplar prophets, you could say. But particularly the ones that regard the age. Oshedar, Bami, Oshedar, Ma, and Sirozahs. Okay, so the last one is to be a final one.